Hey everybody, nice to see you. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to talk about something that lots of people don't really like to do. I hated doing this when I first started, and that's networking. More specifically, creating a professional network that's going to help you get more jobs. Of course, animation skills are probably the most important thing, but if the right people aren't seeing your demo reel, it's going to make getting your foot into the studio that much harder. But when I was first starting out, when I was teaching myself animation, I had to grow my network from knowing nobody in the industry to where it is now, which is knowing a few key people who can supply me with work on a regular basis. So I thought it might be useful to share some tips that I learned along the way to kind of show you how I like to network. Before we start, I just want to get this out of the way. You don't have to be an extremely extroverted person to be a good networker. I mean, as long as you are authentic with your intentions and you're being yourself, this is going to attract more people to you and you'll be more effective in the long run. Another thing, your network doesn't have to consist of like 1 million followers to be considered successful. Sometimes just 1 or 2 of the right people can help you land those consistent jobs. The first thing that really worked for me is you really need to have some sort of social media presence. And if you're worried about what to post, don't be. It could be anything. It could be just a piece you finished, a work in progress. It could be a personal animation. It could be a question that you have. It could be a tip that you learned. As long as it's something you enjoy doing, go for it. Not only is this a great way to get more comfortable showing your work to the public, which is a necessity if you're going to work in a studio, but it's also an amazing way to connect with other artists and animators. So when you're first starting out, even something as simple as following your favorite artists and leaving meaningful comments on their posts is going to go a long way. If you like something in a piece that they did, call it out. If you're curious about how they made that piece, ask them, right? These little bits of dialogue are not only going to help strengthen your relationship, but it will also give you some more information about how to improve your skills. And by following these artists, you've become part of their community, which consists of more artists and animators. So interacting not only with them, but with their community is an awesome way to start meeting like-minded artists like yourself. So some good platforms to start posting on, I think TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, those have really worked for me. And also for professional networking, I can't forget LinkedIn. So to get feedback on your demo reel, to kind of see some great art and connect with other artists in the industry right now, LinkedIn has become an awesome place to do that. This kind of brings me to the next tip that really helped me, which is getting a mentor. All a mentor is just someone, more experienced than you, hopefully working in the industry, who can get your work up to an industry level standard and give you some insights on how the animation industry actually works. They know what it takes to get into the industry and they can help you get there. So how do you get a mentor? Social media is a great way to start a relationship like this. Personally, I would use 2 strategies. First is pretty easy. I would post my reel on LinkedIn and ask for any feedback or advice. And sometimes someone would leave a comment with some good feedback, so it was helpful that way. The other strategy to make more of a personal connection is I would send cold messages to other artists and animators that I never met before. So I would look for senior animators, junior animators, directors, and I would send them a message asking for advice on how I could improve. I would ask them things that I would basically want to know. So I would ask them things like, how did they break into the industry? What kinds of challenges did they face? How did they like working at the studio that they're working at now? What skills did they think were most important to succeed in a studio environment? And once we had a little bit of a dialogue going and I felt comfortable, I would send them my reel and say, hey, whenever you have time, or if you have time, I would really appreciate if you could take a look at my reel and give me some advice on how to get it to that industry level standard. And that was my strategy that really worked well for me. So notice I never would ask them outright for a job, because that wasn't the goal. The goal was to improve my skills and get them to such a level that when I would submit my reel, the studios would have no choice but to take notice of me because the work was so good. And I truly believe that once you get a good feedback loop going, it's only a matter of time before you end up in a studio. Once you're in a studio, it's a little bit easier to network because you're working with these people every single day, right? Even though in the animation industry, it's mostly contract work, so you work for a few months or a year and then you're out of work again. But if you leave a good impression at the studio with your peers and your supervisor, there's a good chance they're gonna call you back next time they have a project. I think the last bit of advice that I find would be helpful is be patient and consistent. It can be a little discouraging if you send 100 messages and you don't get any messages back. As long as you are keeping it respectful, being genuinely interested in growing your skills, I think in the long run, it's going to work out for you. So that's kind of how I look at networking. You're basically using your network to build up your animation skills, which in turn makes networking easier. That's about all the time we have for today, but if you guys have any questions, any cool networking stories, any tips for me on networking that you like to use, leave them in the comments. Love to hear what you guys have to say. You can also leave a link to your Instagram page or your art page in the comments or on our Discord. We're trying to build a community of artists and animators to help each other grow. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Happy animating!